Power does not gather friends. It only unmasks my enemies.
Imagine standing against one of the most powerful empires on Earth. Imagine watching your homeland surrounded. Your people captured. Your allies betrayed. Your kingdom collapsing. Now imagine refusing to surrender. Not for a year. Not for a decade. But for nearly 40 years. This is the story of a woman who was never supposed to succeed. A woman born into a world controlled by men. A woman who faced invading armies, political conspiracies, betrayal, assassination plots, and colonial expansion. Yet somehow, she survived them all. Today, centuries later, her name still echoes across African history. Not because she inherited greatness, but because she built it. This is the story of Nzinga, the queen they could not kill. Long before Nzinga became famous, Central Africa was changing. The Kingdom of Ndongo stood among the most important political powers in the region. Its land stretched across fertile territories. Its people traded, farmed, built communities, and maintained complex political systems. Ndongo was not isolated. It was connected to neighboring kingdoms through trade, diplomacy, and occasional warfare. Life was not perfect. No kingdom is. But Ndongo controlled its own destiny. At least for a time. Then the Portuguese arrived. At first, they came as traders. This was not unusual. Trade had always connected distant peoples. Merchants brought goods. Ideas moved across regions. Relationships developed. But what began as trade slowly transformed into something else. Something far more dangerous. The Atlantic slave trade. As demand for enslaved labor increased across the Atlantic world, human beings became a commodity. Entire communities were affected. Political rivalries intensified. External influence expanded. And kingdoms like Ndongo found themselves trapped in a new reality. The Portuguese wanted more than trade. They wanted influence, control, access to people and resources. And whenever local rulers resisted, pressure followed. Sometimes diplomatic pressure. Sometimes military pressure. Often both. The balance of power in Central Africa began shifting. Many leaders struggled to adapt. Some underestimated the threat. Others overestimated their ability to control it. But history was preparing someone different. Someone who watched carefully. Someone who learned quickly. Someone who understood that survival would require more than courage. It would require strategy. Nzinga was born into a royal family. But royalty did not guarantee safety. And it certainly did not guarantee power. From the moment she entered the world, she was surrounded by politics. The Kingdom of Ndongo was one of the most influential powers in the region, but influence always attracted competition. Every decision made inside the royal court carried consequences. Every alliance created opportunities. Every mistake created dangers. Most children grow up protected from these realities. Nzinga did not. From a young age, she lived close to power. She saw how leaders spoke when they wanted support. She saw how they spoke when they wanted obedience. She noticed the difference. She listened carefully when elders debated. She watched chiefs negotiate agreements. She observed military commanders discussing threats along the borders. While other children focused on games and entertainment, Nzinga focused on understanding people. And that would become one of her greatest strengths. Because long before she learned how to lead armies, she learned how to read human behavior. She learned that what people said was often different from what they wanted. She learned that loyalty could change. She learned that fear could influence decisions. And she learned that power was rarely as simple as it appeared. Inside the royal court, arguments were common. Different leaders had different priorities. Some focused on trade. Others focused on security. Some believed diplomacy solved problems. Others believed strength solved problems. Young Nzinga paid attention to all of them. She noticed which arguments succeeded. She noticed which ideas failed. Most importantly, she noticed why. Every conversation became a lesson. Every disagreement revealed something. Every alliance taught a principle. Every crisis became a classroom. Years passed, and the young princess developed a reputation. Not because she was loud, not because she demanded attention, but because she understood things. People began noticing that she asked unusual questions. Questions that revealed how deeply she thought. Questions that forced others to examine their assumptions. Questions that often made experienced leaders pause before answering. As she grew older, her intelligence became increasingly difficult to ignore. She understood diplomacy. She understood timing. She understood perception. And perception was something many leaders underestimated. A king might possess soldiers. A chief might possess wealth. But if people lost confidence in them, those advantages could disappear quickly. Nzinga understood that leadership was not simply about commanding others. It was about influence. The ability to shape how people thought. The ability to shape how people reacted. The ability to shape how people believed. This insight would later become one of the foundations of her success. Because wars are not won only on battlefields. Many wars are won in the minds of people long before armies ever meet. As she continued learning, the world around her was changing. Portuguese influence was expanding. Trade relationships were becoming more complicated. Political pressures were increasing. And uncertainty was growing throughout the region. The older generation could feel it. Something was changing. The balance that had existed for generations was becoming unstable. Yet many leaders struggled to understand exactly what was happening. Some believed the changes were temporary. Others believed they could be controlled. Many assumed the old systems would continue working. Nzinga was not so certain. She watched carefully. She listened closely. And she began recognizing patterns. The Portuguese were not behaving like ordinary trading partners. Their ambitions seemed larger. Their interests seemed deeper. Their influence seemed to expand wherever opportunities appeared. What some leaders viewed as isolated events, Nzinga viewed as connected developments. This ability to connect patterns would become one of her greatest advantages. Many people react to events. Nzinga studied them. Many leaders focused on immediate problems. Nzinga focused on long-term consequences. If one alliance shifted, she asked what would happen next. If one region became unstable, she asked who might benefit. If one decision solved today's problem, she asked whether it would create tomorrow's crisis. This way of thinking separated her from many of her contemporaries. Even as a young woman, she was developing the mindset of a strategist. Not because she knew the future, but because she understood cause and effect. She understood that today's actions become tomorrow's realities. And the realities forming around Ndongo were becoming increasingly dangerous. Political divisions deepened. External pressure increased. Regional rivalries intensified. Every year seemed to introduce new challenges. For many people, the future looked frightening. The kingdom appeared to be entering a period of uncertainty. Some feared conflict. Others feared instability. Many feared change itself. But Nzinga saw something different. She saw lessons. Every challenge taught her something about leadership. Every mistake taught her something about decision-making. Every success taught her something about strategy. She was learning from a kingdom under pressure. Learning from victories. Learning from failures. Learning from survival. Without realizing it, she was preparing for responsibilities far greater than anyone imagined. Because history was moving toward a crisis. A crisis that would test kingdoms. A crisis that would test leaders. And a crisis that would eventually test Nzinga herself. The young girl who spent years watching, listening, learning, and thinking, would soon discover whether those lessons were enough. Because the storm approaching Ndongo was unlike anything the kingdom had ever faced before. And when that storm arrived, it would change her life forever.